of Change News.
Good day, this is Voice of Change Radio News. I'm Amanda Kumalo. Stories making the headlines. President Mnangagwa urges Zimbabweans to take pride in their country. First Lady counterparts make food security commitment for children. In business news, new central shaft sets blanket mine apart. In regional and international news, demos over parole for Hani's killer. In sports news, Chipembere to honor outstanding players. The news in detail. Zimbabwe will remain for Zimbabweans and outsiders intending to contribute towards developing the economy should do so without dictating the path for citizens who have the right to do that themselves. Addressing mourners at the burial of his nephew, Mr. Nicholas Mafidi Mnangagwa in Chiruma Nzuri settlement area yesterday, President Mnangagwa said Zimbabweans should always be united and vigilant, taking pride in their nationality. Mr. Nicholas Mnangagwa, 63, who was the eldest son to President Mnangagwa's eldest sister, Emma, died on Sunday afternoon at Mvuma District Hospital. In a related development, Zimbabwe will use the opportunity of hosting the 22nd International Conference on AIDS and STIs in Africa in 2023, ICASA 2023, to sharpen and reinvigorate the national responses to HIV. President Mnangagwa said to mark today's commemorations of the World AIDS Day. This day is set aside globally on December 1 to galvanize collective efforts to end new HIV infection by 2030 and to remember those who succumbed to the virus. The theme of this year's commemorations is Equalize, which resonates with government's quest of implementing multi-pronged development programs, projects and policy interventions that leave no one and no place behind. The president said that the Zimbabwean theme was access, empowerment, inclusivity, opportunities, and the upholding of human rights. This highlighted the focus towards a holistic approach to tackling HIV and its results. Zimbabwe has won the commendation of the United Nations for achieving global AIDS targets, and the president noted that through the successes of the Second Republic's engagement and re-engagement policy, other countries will converge in Zimbabwe for the ICASA. Meanwhile, First Ladies attending the inaugural Asia-Pacific Africa Women's Economic Exchange Summit here have jointly committed themselves as mothers to ensuring sustainable food production and provision of clean water to children for them to survive and grow up healthy. They acknowledge that in recent years, the environment surrounding children has faced many challenges and difficulties as a result of extreme weather events such as droughts, floods, storms, as well as infectious diseases and childbirth in unsafe conditions. The summit was being held under the theme to cope with food crisis for the future of children by mothers. The secretariat of the summit was thrilled by the First Lady's passion and commitment to work towards a better future for the children and generations to come. They promised to work together with the African First Ladies and assist them so that their vision comes to execution. Moving on to business news. The recent official commissioning of the $67 million new central shaft project at Blanket Mine in Gwanda, Matebeleland South, brings to the fore three critical observations about prospects for the country's mining sector and the economy in general. The first one is that the multi-million-dollar gold project by Caledonia Mining Corporation is a strong expression of growth growing investor confidence in Zimbabwe as a favorable destination for business. Secondly, it buttresses the significance of expanding exploration investments across different mineral segments and deepening shaft levels to higher resource concentration so as to increase output and widen job opportunities. Caledonia Mining Corporation is listed on the New York Stock Exchange, alternative investment market of the London Stock Exchange, and recently the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange in Zimbabwe. President Mnangagwa officially commissioned the new Central Shaft project just over 2 weeks ago, as well as the 12.2 megawatt solar project established at a cost of about $14 million US. A look at what is happening beyond our borders. Pretoria. ANC MPs joined by Mandla Mandela, the tribal chief of the Mvezo Traditional Council and the grandson of icon Nelson Mandela, protested outside Parliament yesterday against the release of Chris Hunt's killer, Janus Wallace. Wallace gunned down the South African Communist Party leader Hani in the driveway of his Boksburg home in 1993. He is said to be released on Thursday after the unanimous decision by the Constitutional Court to grant him parole. The decision to release Wallace has been met by a lot of criticism from the ANC and its alliance partners, the SACP and the Congress of South African Trade Unions COSATU. The tripartite alliance demands an inquest into the assassination of Hani. They say the release of Wallace on parole has reduced their chances of finding the truth. Speaking to reporters outside Parliament, Mandela said Wallace has never revealed who had hired him to kill Hani, and he has not shown the spirit of reconciliation that was championed by the founding fathers of democracy. Meanwhile, in Pretoria, the tripartite alliance marched to Kosi Mampuru prison to demonstrate against the release of Wallace. And finally, in sports news, after successfully appointing Stanford Sticks Mutizwa as their head coach towards the end of the season and finishing the race strongly, Premiership football side Black Rhinos will today honor some of their outstanding players. The Army side finished the season on a high note after they were transformed into Premiership contenders in the last few matches when former national team player Mutizwa took over the reins. Chipembere, who parted ways with Dynamo's bound Herbert Njompano Marua, will see several players vying for top accolades at a ceremony to be held in Harare this afternoon. That ends this news bulletin.
Voice of Change News.